Now, if I want to navigate frame by frame using my JKL, what you can do is hold down the K key and then start hitting the L or the J, depending upon which direction you want to go, backwards or forwards. So I'll hold down the K key, and then I'll tap on the L key. I start to increase my increment one frame at a time. You can also hold both down, and you'll scrub through. So watch this. K being held down, I hold my L, and obviously going backwards. I hit J, and then I'm going to hold down the J and the K at the same time. And one thing I wanted you to notice, though, while I was doing that, while I was scrubbing with my JKL, I was hearing the audio. I was scrubbing the audio. I can also navigate two different frames by using my left and right arrow keys, but you're not going to hear the audio. So watch what happens. I'm going to just start hitting my right arrow key, and I obviously start to advance frame by frame by frame. I can hit my left arrow key, frame by frame by frame. And if I want to jump 10 frames forward or backwards, I can hold the shift key and then hit the right arrow key. You'll notice here inside of our time indicator, I'm at the 16-second 28th frame. I hold shift, right arrow key, and so on. And then backwards, the left arrow key. So this allows me to navigate 10 frames forward or backwards. If there's a specific amount of frames or a specific frame number you want to jump to, you can also do that pretty easily. I'll click right in my time indicator, and a calculator will appear. Now there's a couple of things I want to talk about really quickly here. I'm looking at time code. First of all, if you wanted to work in frames all the time, you can change that inside your preferences. Within the calculator here, if I wanted to switch this to look at frames, I just click where it reads TC for time code, and now I'm looking at frames. I click on it again where it now reads FRM, and we're now looking at time code. You can also control if you're looking at non-drop frames and drop frames. But the add and subtract button, these are the buttons you're going to use to navigate forward or backwards by specific amounts of frames. So if I come in here and I enter 22 and I click add, you'll notice that my cursor jumped 22 frames forward. If I click subtract, it's going to jump back 22 frames. And you can repeatedly do this by just clicking the button over and over again. Now if I wanted to go to a specific frame, let's see, we're at 1402. So if I want to go to the 18-second mark, I can click 18, and then here's a trick for you. Instead of clicking 00, whenever you want to add just 00 for any field, whether it's hours, minutes, seconds, or frames, just click the period button, and it'll automatically enter or add the zeros. And then I click enter, and you're going to notice down inside the cursor, and also here, I jump to the 18-second mark. All of these methods of getting to a certain point in time in your sequence become very important when we start to do our dynamic editing later. I should also mention that the spacebar can be used to play your footage forwards or backwards also. If I hit the spacebar, we start playing forward. Hit the spacebar, I stop. You want to go backwards, play backwards, hold shift and spacebar. And once again, spacebar to stop. And one last hotkey I should introduce about quickly navigating without markers, without any in and outs or anything, is your up and down arrows. They're going to take you to each individual transition or cut point inside of your timeline, in your sequence. So the up arrow key is going to take me to the previous transition point, and my down arrow key takes me to the next. And I can navigate very quickly between each transition by using my up and my down arrow keys. All right, let's take a look at some of these other navigation hotkeys that I mentioned that we see here under each player, such as go to cue mark, go to keyframing, go to in and outs, and so on. So I need to create a couple of these. Obviously, we can use these buttons right here to set your in and outs. Click, I just set my in. I can move forward in my sequence, and then click the out button to activate my out. Now, who in the world would do that when you can use I and O? Obviously, we always use I and O as our fast way of creating our in and outs. So for example, if I want to go to another frame here and I hit the O key on the keyboard, that's where I set my out. If I move over here and I hit I set my in. That's the most common way of setting your in and outs, right? Is your I and your O. Then these parameters underneath here, they can let you alter and change them if you need to. You can click in it to get a calculator. You can scrub these different areas in here, whether it's the in point, the out point, or the duration. Okay, so now I've got some in and out set here, so let's talk about how I navigate my position or my current frame indicator to my in and my outs. If I hold shift and hit I, it's going to go to the in point. So once again, shift I goes to the in point. Shift O goes to your out point. Shift I in point, shift O out point. If you want to remove you're in or you're out. You can easily do that with hotkeys also. I should just point out, if I go over to the gear right here, and I click on this, I go to mark, you're going to see all the different options that I'm showing you. We can set our in, set our outs this way. We can set our in and outs based on a selection. I'll show you that in a second. It's the X key. And then we can also clear our in and out respectively, or clear both by using Option I to get rid of our in, Option O to get rid of our out, and Option X to get rid of the in and the out at one time. So let me discard that. So what did I say? Option I, goodbye in point. Option O, goodbye out point. Let me undo that twice. So it's back. Option X gets rid of both of them. While I was editing the video, I realized at this point I forgot to show the hotkey to create in and outs based on selected clips in your timeline. So I stopped editing and I'm recapturing this very quickly just to show you that. It's pretty simple, but obviously it's important when you want to create in and outs based on a series of frames that you selected or different clips and so on. I'm just going to do it with a couple segments right here really quick. So I can hold the Shift key and I can just select these 3 segments here. So I want to create my in and outs based on this selection. It's the X key. I hit the X key. You'll see the in and outs are now set based on the selected clips. In just a minute, we'll be looking at all the selection hotkeys to select your different segments and individual frames and so on. But just remember, to create your in and outs based on a selection, it's the X key. Now, back to your regularly scheduled program. Now let's add a couple markers. Once again, I just want to show you where they're available to be created through menus. If you want, you can create it from up here in the mark menu. You can come here from the gear where you see all the mark options. And of course, I can come down to my gear here. And you can see I got all my mark options in here also. But we're going to use hotkeys. So to create a mark, we hit M. I create a marker. You can create those obviously even while you're playing. So if I hit the L key, I'm playing. Maybe you're lining this up to music. I hit the M key again. I create another marker. I can scrub forward. Let's stop this playback. I'll move forward and hit the M key again. So now I have 3 different markers. And obviously you can customize each marker if you want to. I can come over here where you see the little blue swatch. I click on it. I can switch my option in my color picker to be looking at the pots. So now I can easily say this one's going to be yellow. We'll set that one yellow. I can name them. So this one's going to be Ken. Then I can select this marker and I can change this one to a green. Say okay, and we'll change this one to edit, whatever, right? And then of course, if I want to navigate to the different markers, I could go to my gear. I could go to. I can go to mark and you see a flyout, which each one of them with the name and the color that I created. I would never do that. That's way too much work for me, especially when I can hold my Shift key and hit my down arrow key, and that takes me to my next marker. Do it again, I jump to the yellow marker. And then if I want to go to the previous marker, hold Shift and hit the up arrow key. I navigate to the different markers. Just for a point of reference, I have 3 markers in here. If I hold the Shift and I continuously hit either up or down arrow key, I will cycle through my markers. So what I mean is, I don't have any markers prior to the current marker we are locked on or sitting on. If I hold Shift and hit the up arrow key, which is the shortcut for going to the previous marker, I'm going to jump to the last marker. So even though I did jump forward, notice that I skipped the green one because we really went around the sequence to come back to the one. So you can toggle and cycle through the markers is all I'm trying to say. Okay, I'm going to delete these markers for right now. So let's go over to our gear menu. I go to my marks and I'll choose delete all markers and they are all gone. Okay, the next navigation hotkey I want to talk about is when you have keyframes. I'm going to zoom in, and I'll talk about all the zooming hotkeys in a second, but I hope you already know that when you bring your cursor down here over the horizontal scroll bar, if you click and drag anywhere on this bar, up and down, you'll zoom into the positioner's location, the clip that's right at the positioner. As I said, I'll come back and we'll talk about all the different zooming and panning hotkeys in just a second. But this clip that I have right here, let's add an axis to this. So I go to my FX, I come over here, I choose an axis tool, I add my axis tool. I'm going to hit my up arrow key to go to the first frame, the end point, the transition of this clip. I'll activate auto key, and let's zoom in on this a little bit. So I just drag my X up. I want to jump forward 25 frames, so I'll click in my current time indicator, add 25, and choose add. We jump in there, and then I'll close the calculator. Now I'm going to take my scale, I'll drag it down, like so. Not that far, let's go about right here. and I'll scale it up once again, and I'll maybe adjust my X or my Y, whatever. I'm just trying to create keyframes. We can see inside this clip now, if I move my cursor a little bit, we have 3 keyframes. We have one at the first frame, we have one at this frame here, and we have one at that frame. They're indicating by these light blue lines that you see there. If I want to navigate to those different keyframes now, I'll hold Shift K, and that will take me to the next keyframe. So once again, Shift K takes me to the forward keyframe. Option K takes me to the previous keyframe that I have. And just like using the hotkey to navigate between my markers, I can continuously hit the same hotkey, and I will cycle through the keyframes as far as my navigation. Option K, Option K, Option K, Shift K, Shift K, Shift K. All right, I'm going to delete this axis. You can do it in many different ways. You have the delete button. You can pick it up and drag it to the bottom of the UI to throw it away, or you can hold the Alt key and click on a tool, and that will also delete it. That's the most common hotkey that I like using. So once again, Alt, click on a tool, and goodbye.